Okay, let's move on.
All right. So let's really quickly, I want to talk about this 170-pound division. Wonderboy's people came out and they said the fight that most interests them is Nick Diaz fight.
Hold on. When you say Wonderboy's people, do you mean my management?
Oh, is that who it is?
Yeah, he's managed by Paradigm Sports Management. So really, I should have reached out to Audi Attar, Paradigm Sports Management Supremo. So, what have you seen? What are they saying?
Let's see. I'll tell you exactly what they said. So, Wonderboy, Nick Diaz. All I know is that they said that's the fight that they want. According to Dana White, he keeps on reaching out to the Diaz brothers, and they keep on turning down fights. And then Nate Diaz came out and said that Dana White's a liar, and he fucking only got offered one fight, and blah blah blah. So it's a lot of he said, she said, a lot of drama. But then you got Wonderboy who's sitting there going like, "Hey, we're looking for a great fight," and I think Nick Diaz would be an incredible fight. This is who is it that said this? This is Ray Thompson, Wonderboy's coach and father. Okay, that's his father.
Oh, I see. Okay, so his dad's saying this. Now, of course, his dad's going to look for a fight with Nick Diaz. And I'm not disparaging Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is a fighter's fighter. A lot of respect for that guy. Brings it every time. Jiu-jitsu black belt. Fought the best guys in the world. And he's afraid of no man. Got to give Nick Diaz the respect. In that fight, though, you would have to lean towards Wonderboy. I think stylistically, it would play into Wonderboy's favor. With the height distance he has, being so explosive, so fast, with the kicking style, it would keep Nick Diaz at range and he'd be able to pick him apart from a distance, I believe. Now, of course, the way to counter somebody with that kicking style is to crowd a kicker. That's what they say. If you crowd a kicker, they don't have the room to throw the kicks, but that's easier said than done against Wonderboy. But, of course, Nick Diaz hasn't fought since that loss to Anderson Silva. It's been a while since he's won a fight. I mean, it's been years since he's actually won a fight. So you can see the appeal for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't see the appeal if you're Nick Diaz. If you're Nick Diaz, you don't want to go out there and face the guy that just lost twice in a row to the champion. Because what do you achieve? You just lost to the guy that could have beat the champ twice. So that's not appealing for Nick Diaz. I wouldn't understand the motivation. Of course, the motivation would be, he went out there and beat a former number one contender. That puts him maybe in line for a title shot. But also, if he loses, that puts him, it's very, very bad news for him. And of course, I don't know. I mean, Stephen is an amazing fighter. He's an amazing athlete. But I don't know if he's a big box office pay-per-view draw either.
Yeah.
So, you have to weigh those things into factor when you're thinking about these things.
You got to be honest, though. Nick Diaz come back just like George St. Pierre come back, just like Anderson Silva, just like anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter. He's going to be the draw. There's only...
Well, Nick Diaz called me out recently. Did you see that?
Yeah, no, I did. Here's the thing. There's only a handful of fights, that can be these super crazy fights, and you and GSP are booked. Those are two fights that Nick Diaz could come back to. It's a huge, pay-per-view. Conor is a fight, in my opinion, I think that fight's going to happen one day because there's just too much history with Nate and him. And even though in my opinion, I think Nate's a better version of Nick, I think that there's a big payday there for both of them, a huge storyline built in right there. That's a fight that could happen, but, McGregor's caught up with Mayweather right now, and then possibly Khabib or Tony. So that fight's not really there. There's really no big fights for Nick Diaz. I don't know that the title fight against Tyron is much bigger, quote unquote, of a fight than the Wonderboy fight. I think Wonderboy has more fans. I think he has more fanfare. I believe he probably has more Twitter followers. And from a stylistic standpoint,
than Diaz?
No, than Tyron Woodley, Wonderboy.
Oh, pardon me.
So here's the deal, right? I think just from a stylistic standpoint and from a promotional standpoint, I don't think that there's. I think that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's actually the better fight than the title fight. I think both of them are really tough fights for Nick Diaz. But I think Tyron Woodley, I mean, he basically does what GSP does. And I think Nick Diaz has a hard time 9 out of 10 times with that style fighter.
Yeah, but Wonderboy is an incredible fighter. We've seen it time and time again. He's knocked people out all over the place. But he's just not that big marquee matchup. And that's what Diaz wants. It's as simple as that. He wants a GSP. He wants a title fight. He wants to fight me. He wants maybe a McGregor. He wants those big marquee matchups. And that's all he's interested in. And there's a reason on the flip side why people are calling out Nick Diaz. Because he is the name. He is, the guy that's going to bring the attention. So for Wonderboy, it's a smart move. But I see Nick Diaz as the one that's kind of in charge there. You know, he's the draw, if you will. It was kind of funny recently. He was saying, "Oh, you know, I offered to fight Michael Bisping, and I don't know why he's fighting GSP. He should have fought me. I'm the draw." And me and Nick ran into each other in New York a while ago, and we did talk about it. We did talk about fighting each other, and he said, "Let's fight at 180." And I was like, "180? What's the point in that? There's no belt on the line." He said, "No, come on, it's going to be a catch weight," and he just recently came out and said that, and that kind of hit the news headlines. Again, there's no point in doing that fight. There's no way. I don't even think the UFC would be interested in doing that. What's the point in a champion fighting when the belt isn't even on the line? So, you know, I've got no interest in that fight. But Nick Diaz, man, come on, where are you at? I want to see the guy fight. I'm a fan.
I'm a huge Diaz fan. I mean, huge. Both the Diaz brothers, you know, they can do no wrong in my mind. I think just the way they carry themselves is hilarious. They just fucking Nick is out there.
Can you remember when we walked out of the SiriusXM studios when I was in New York, and Nick and Nate were both there, and they just look like they wanted to kill everybody in the room?
Yeah. Yeah. They have
I was like, "Hey guys, what's up? How you doing?" Because as I just said, I was hanging out with Nick not too long before that, and like they both just kind of like grunted at me. Nate looked at me like he wanted to kill me. I was like, "What the fuck's your problem, bud? Come on, relax."
Well, those are guys I think that they have to get themselves angry and heated to like fight somebody, and they maybe see you as somebody that would fight one of them down the line. Maybe. So there's certain dudes that I grew up in like a very Hispanic community in Rockland County, New York, in Havastra, which is like a lot of Puerto Ricans and Dominican kids, and I would watch that happen a lot when we were like teenagers getting into fights. They would have to like almost get themselves more angry than they really were. You know, it's like they're like, "Yo, what'd you say? What'd you say?" And they'd start pumping up their chests and getting themselves worked up and getting themselves angry and like start pacing back and forth. And that's the Diaz brothers. You watch it happen when they come down to the cage. They're so fucking angry and heated and in the moment. And then there's certain guys that, you see a GSP on the other end where he's so like, he seems like he's almost like meditating and at ease, and he's kind of like, clear headed. And then you talk to a lot of guys who are somewhere, I think you're a guy who kind of falls somewhere in between,
Yeah, I used to. I used to get very, very emotional. These days, I try and stay as calm as possible. But I was just going to say a little story. The first time I met Nate Diaz, I was in Denver, and there was a UFC event happening. I was there fight week doing some stuff, and I was scheduled to fight Jason Mayhem Miller. We were in Denver promoting the fight. And I was in the elevator, and Nate Diaz walks in. I'm like, "Hey, Nate, how you doing?" We shake hands briefly, and no conversation, just like one of those elevator rides. There was a few other people in there as well, so everyone's standing there, kind of looking at the ceiling or whatever, waiting for the ride to pass. And then the doors open. Nate gets out, and just as the doors are shutting, he leans back and goes, "Oh, I forgot, man. Fuck Miller." And like stuck the two fingers up and then walked off. And I just thought that was hilarious. It was great. I was like, okay, I like this guy. He's cool.
Yeah, how do you not love that, man?
Yeah, exactly. He's, "Oh, I forgot. Fuck Miller."
Yeah.
He walked off, so yeah, no.
They're great, man. I mean, look,
the Diaz brothers.
Did you see he posted a video. I guess he does these like, Periscope videos of him like rolling joints and training for triathlons. Nick just doesn't give a fuck. Nick's the guy who's like, "Dude, I'm not going to stop smoking weed. Just so you guys know, I'm going to continue to smoke weed this whole time. Suspend me for 5 years. I just don't give a shit."
You're allowed to smoke weed.
Yeah.
If you choose to, if that's what you like to do, you're allowed to smoke weed outside of competition. The way it works with USADA is you have in competition and out of competition. In competition is 12 hours before the fight and 12 hours after, or until you've been seen by a doctor or you've given a urine or a blood sample.
But how? I don't know. Here's what I don't understand. How would they know 12 hours before?
As long as it's not performance enhancing, you can smoke weed, you can do recreational drugs, you can do whatever you want, as long as it's not performance enhancing. And if you go to the USADA website, there's all the information you need on there. There's every type of drug listed, every kind of substance which is allowed, which isn't allowed. And it's all in the category of in competition and out of competition. And if it's in or under the out of competition tab, then you can go to town. And if Nick Diaz wants to smoke weed, if Jihan Jones wants to do cocaine, if anyone wants to do whatever they want to do, they can do it out of competition.
Yeah. Well, here's what I don't understand, though, because if you know anything about marijuana testing, you have to stop smoking weed for 30 days in order for it to get out of your system. So basically, the Diaz brothers have to stop smoking weed 30 days out. But they've both, I believe, said they just don't do that. So I don't really understand exactly how the testing
that's a
works.
tricky one, because I guess, let's say, I mean, as you say, it takes 30 days to get out of your system, but then let's say you test positive for weed, but then you say, hold on a minute, I haven't smoked in over a month. Then you get into that territory of trying to prove when
it should just be fucking legal. Mike, can you just say this now? Can I ask you? Because I know, like, it's not the dumbest rule.
Okay, go ahead. Ask me the question.
Is that not the dumbest rule in MMA? Shouldn't people be able to fucking smoke weed? I'm talking about right before they get in the cage. Who cares?
No.
Why not?
No. Well, first and foremost, I don't think weed should be a legal drug. I don't think marijuana should be legal. I think it's a gateway drug, and children start on that, and then they go on to other things. And you can say whatever you want, but that's how I feel, Luis J. Gomez.
They've done studies. Alcohol is more of a gateway drug, Mr. Michael Bisping.
Pardon me? What did you say?
They've done studies, and alcohol is more of a gateway drug. It's been proven time and time again. That's a myth.
Yeah, but don't tell me that when you listen. I haven't got to stick up my ass. I mean, people please themselves. I just think that if you legalize it completely, you're sending a message to children that there's nothing wrong with it, and more people will be inclined to try it, and then therefore it might lead on to other things. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Can I make a counterpoint to that?
Stick up my ass. Do whatever you want. You want to smoke weed, go for it. I couldn't care less. But going to the fighting thing, should you be allowed to go out there and smoke weed before a fight? And I say, no, you shouldn't, because if you smoke weed and you're one of these guys that gets out of bed and smokes straight away, and that's how they live their life, in some ways that may be a performance enhancer. Maybe that puts them onto a higher plane. Maybe, I mean, Eddie Bravo and Joe Rogan talk, and a lot of jiu-jitsu guys actually talk about how creative they get when they smoke weed. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a lot of shit, to be honest, if you ask me. But I don't smoke weed, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Would it dull the pain? Would it give you a better tolerance for pain? Who knows? Would it allow you to maybe get into this higher plane where you just kind of trance out in the fight? And I don't know. There's a lot of ways where it could alter the mindset. And this fight, the fighting business is predominantly a mental game. Of course, it's very, very physical, but it's 90% mental. I'm telling you.
The only thing that you said now that I agree with, can I say this, is that you kind of made a point that you didn't even make the point. I'm extracting it from the point that you made, because I don't agree with you about marijuana, and I don't agree with you about it being a gateway drug. And I believe that if you're sending, if you're sending people to jail for, a plant that is literally getting you
No. I don't think anyone should go to jail.
Yeah.
I don't think. No. All right. So sorry. I don't think you should be criminalized. 100%. You shouldn't be a criminal if you are caught with it.
You're just saying you don't want it legally recreation. You got kids. I understand your perspective as well. You got teenage kids. It's a little different.
I've got children. I mean, listen, I don't think you should be a criminal. No, far from it. And if that's what it sounded like, then I'm incorrect. Allow me to rephrase that. I just don't think it should be everywhere, dispensaries all over the place on every street corner, like you can buy booze,
right?
Which is where it would end up one day, and I just don't think that's smart. If people want to smoke weed, go ahead, shoot yourself. You know what I mean? I couldn't care less. It doesn't bother me, and good for you, whatever you like. I've got my vices. You know what I'm saying? I have no problem, but I just don't think it should be encouraged in everyday society.
Well, the thing that stuck out to me, what you just really said, and why you don't think it should be legal in a fight, is that it's a mental game, and you're altering your mental state. And the only thing I can say is, like, for me personally, I can smoke a joint, I can go write an essay, I can go drive a car, I can go work out. That's me, though. If I take a break for 6 weeks and then I smoke a joint, I will be giggling and rolling on the floor and laughing, because it hits you differently after you take some time off. So, depending on who the person is and what their tolerance is, how often they smoke, the only thing that I can really say is, yes, it's the same thing as going into the cage drunk. You could be putting yourself in danger because you're mentally not in there, and it's the most dangerous sport. You're one of the most dangerous sports in the world. You're kicking and punching each other in the head. So I believe that could be kind of something a little bit dangerous. But for me personally, it wouldn't make a difference. If I went in high or didn't, it's not numbing the pain. If I broke my arm and I was high, believe me, it's going to be the same fucking pain.
I'm not talking about that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying you can break your arm and just because you're stoned, you're not going to feel it. Of course you're going to feel it. I just think at some point you've got to draw the line. You know, I mean, I could be mistaken, but I don't think you're allowed to drink alcohol and compete. I mean, I don't know why you would want to do that. That just seems the stupidest thing ever. But you can't do that. And you've got to draw a line, you know. So you can't smoke weed and go and fight, Lewis. Listen, just accept it, okay? And I think that's a pretty broad statement.
Yeah.
If you want to smoke weed, go ahead. Guess what? 12 hours before, you can. 12 hours after, you can.
Yeah.
Just that 24-hour window. And if you can't fucking give it up for that 24 hours, then you've got a problem.